Because when I looked on the ICF website, it was overwhelming. When you look at the parts and the different things, I was like, wow. I would hear people say things like, I can't do this because I did it there and it did not work.
As coaches, we do get coached.
A lot.
So I mean, we come thinking that I will start coaching and change somebody else's life, but the vice versa happens.
Going back to this certification things, right? When we learn about skills, there's a perfect world, there's an ideal world. We don't see an ideal world. You will see a very different sort of world. How do you work with that world? That is the question. And that's where coaching helps you. Having a coaching mindset helps immensely because you have a certain empathy for where they're coming from. If you're planning to get a ICF credential in 1 week, not possible. I don't know how people do it, but I know that there are people who do these short courses, but that's not going to work. I think that's the confusing bit. When you enter Agile, it's like you're swimming in a sea of certification choices.
Yeah, so hi, Meena. First of all, I wholeheartedly welcome you to this edition of Regal Talk. And I also welcome all the viewers and listeners for this edition of Regal Talk. Regal Talk is a platform in which we invite coaches, ICF credentialed coaches, to share their journey, their learnings, and their insights in this journey of becoming a coach. Just to set the context, today's session we have Meena Venkataram, an ICF ACC Enterprise Agile coach, already done her ICF ACC from us, Regal Unlimited, and also currently pursuing her ICF PCC, and she's logging in from UK. Thanks, Meena, for joining. So also, I want to probably set the context, broad context, what we will be covering in this conversation. So for those who might not know, ICF stands for International Coaching Federation, a global gold standard in coaching, and they certify individuals and leaders to become coaches. This conversation, we will be specifically focusing on the why, the how, the what, the when, of an agile coach, how an agile professional, agile leader can actually become an ICF coach. Though this conversation is specifically focused on Scrum Masters, agile managers, leaders, project managers, and a host of technological leaders, but I still believe that every leader can definitely benefit from this conversation. So if you're an aspiring coach, stay tuned in and you will definitely derive immense value from this conversation. That's all. I'll just plunge into the conversation. So I welcome once again Meena. Please, I invite you to share something about yourself. Let's begin by getting to know you as a person. I'm intrigued to know what's your story.
Great. So thanks for that, Karan, and very happy to be here. So as you just said, I'm Meena. I'm an agile coach, and I started working back in 2003. So June 30th was like 20 years of being in various working in various forms with teams. First as a developer and as an engineer, and then moving on to other roles like agile coaching. Which was like a natural shift for me. The thing for me was that, I worked in teams all my life. Even before I became a coach, as a developer, I've worked in teams, right? And working in teams is hard. For most people, though, we talk about the very aspirational elements of teamwork, like oh, we're a good team, this is good teamwork. Getting to that place of synergy requires some amount of nurturing, and I have always found myself reflecting on what makes a good team. Like, why have I enjoyed being part of some teams and why not so much other teams? And as part of that journey, right, at some point, I encountered Agile when I moved to the UK. And I picked up some skills, like Agile's entry point is this framework called Scrum. So I started there. and then gradually moved into Scrum Master, was like a team coach, and then more to Agile coaching. So it was a very natural transition. I used to call myself an accidental Scrum Master, but then somebody pointed out, one of our mentors from Regal, that there's nothing like an accident. So, like maybe I was very much on this path all along and I just didn't recognize it. But that's what got me here. About me, I'm mom to two little boys here, so they keep me busy. And I love going on long walks, and very much a reader, so read a lot. And yeah, that's about it.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. I myself love long walks, long silent walks on
Yeah.
paths where nobody usually goes, not the crowded ones in Bangalore. Thanks for sharing. So, I mean, I'm just curious to know, uh, how did you get introduced to ICF? You had a stellar career, 20 years into teams, from developer to agile, scrum master, then agile coaching. How did you get to know about ICF, and why pursue ICF credential after having such an illustrious career?
Okay, so that's a very good question. So for me, it was very much part of discovering what I needed and discovering myself as a person that got me to the point where I said, okay, I want to do an ICF credential. So what happened was I worked with a lot of teams, and the entry point is always for agile coaches. We start by teaching. We usually teach about frameworks, or we teach about what the team needs, or anything else, and then we move to, there are other things we do like mentor and coach. And now the coaching bit, I realized I was doing a lot by instinct. I was asking questions, but I didn't really know what coaching actually meant. So, maybe what I was doing, what I thought I was doing as coaching, was not really coaching. But then what started to happen was I was encountering these situations where, people had all the knowledge they needed, and they sometimes even um, knew where they wanted to be, but there was something stopping them. And even from my point of view, I could see something, and I had the gut instinct that there were some beliefs around certain firmly held views. Like in the agile world, people hold all kinds of views because there is no one source of truth. People come from everywhere, and our experiences make us, they shape us, right? So I would hear people say things like, I can't do this because I did it there and it did not work. And then just stay put. And it's the truth for them. So I could see, yes, this is true. I mean, there is nothing wrong with what they're saying. Now, how do you shift the perspective there? Like, how do you first build a bridge from where you are to what's possible? And that's what brought me to coaching. Like I wanted to be better at working with people, really understand where they are, and then partner with them in moving to a different space. And then one of my mentors told me, there's this ICF coaching that you can do. And I had been hearing about it, in different places. I saw a few agile coaches get it. So I was very curious about it, but I didn't know how, because when I looked on the ICF website, it was overwhelming. When you look at the parts and the different things, I was like, wow, I can never do this. And then I came along to, I think, one of the Regal introductory sessions. I went to a few different introductory sessions, but something about it, I was felt like, I could do it. And then I signed up. But I think the big thing for me was the rigor. Like when we look at even the entry level ACC for ICF, it's 100 hours of coaching. And I was not really sure how I could do that alongside a job, because I interpreted it literally, that you have to go out and do 100 hours. So helping get context there, that it's peer coaching plus, it's a coaching you do in your workplace plus a bit of pro bono, it all counts. Helping me to get that understanding was very nice. And I actually enjoyed it because, when I completed my ACC, I felt this feeling of accomplishment and that feeling of confidence, and I think that's what a credential should do. It shouldn't just be the run of the mill thing. So yeah.
Wow. So I think you have made a segue to my next question. And I think what a little I know about the Agile and Scrum industry, it is a very certification driven industry. And rightfully so, because it indicates your growth, right? So you are chasing one certificate after another. Now, one thing which you mentioned was, yes, a certification should not give you only that sense of, that just a piece of paper. It should give you that sense of accomplishment. But apart from that, why should an agile leader or technology leader look to pursue ICF credential? And maybe a harsher phrase for that would be, is ICF credential just another certification for an agile professional?
You bring up a sad truth about the agile space right now. It is very certification heavy, and I think that's the confusing bit. When you enter agile, it's like you're swimming in a sea of certification choices. And very recently, I listened to a talk where they were talking about, the history of certifications. Like initially, when it started, you learn directly from the people who have come up with the framework. So, there's that link between the teacher and the student. Very similar to, how the ancient Gurukul system and all work, right? But that didn't, because of commercial reasons, it sort of ballooned out of proportions, and so now we've got this cottage industry of certifications, and it's very difficult in the noise to figure out what is right and what is not. Now, the ICF certification, it's not a certification, it's a credential, right? And the way I think of it, is like what I see my kids do when they go for their karate classes. So in their classes, how it works is you get to go to a belt only if you get to move to a higher belt only if you have mastered and you're already showing the capability of doing what you can do in the new belt, right? Like say you're moving from yellow to orange or whatever, right? You'll already be doing what an orange belt is doing. Only then you earn your credential, because they're not interested in the fact that you're getting a certificate. They want you to show up. They want you to practice. They want you to build that discipline, and they want you to show that sort of skill in your day-to-day life. And they have that beautiful way of, juniors, senior kids mentoring juniors, and it's all built into that pathway. And I think ICF is kind of similar, it's more about the being, even though they say, PCC is being, and in ACC you're doing, you can move to being even in ACC. There's nothing stopping you, right? But I think that's the distinguishing factor for me. It's not about a certificate, it's that journey. So when you get your certificate, you're a coach. There's no doubt about it. You have that confidence to coach, right? You've built the muscle to do a number of things. You've also started behaving in a certain way as a coach would behave, not just in a coaching session, but even outside. And that integrity comes from that rigor in the journey. And so it is different. It's a credential. It is not a certificate. And I would say I benefited hugely from doing it. I can see the difference, and I hope my teams and my clients can feel it as well. Yeah.
Wow, incredible. Thanks for sharing that. I also feel that, I mean, when I see multiple certifications, nothing wrong in that. They are truly reflective of your growth, continued learning. I think Steve Jobs said, if you keep learning, you are always young. Okay,
Correct.
so that's the good way. But the difference between certification and credential is that the journey. That's
Yeah.
why I see many certifications which are 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, just wrap up this thing, right? In 3 day, it is a bit challenging to go through that rigor and get the element of journey, the element of being, the element of transformation in that. Hence, ICF, is preferred. Now, in the beginning, you mentioned, you are in a sea of certification. It's a beautiful metaphor. So my request to you would be, I'm sure many of the viewers and listeners here will be at various points in their career. Some could be the beginning Scrum Master, could be middle Agile coaches, could be, at different levels in their career. If you could lay out for them, if you could help them understand, for an aspiring Agile leader or a professional, for an aspiring Agile leader, what is the right time to start looking at ICF credential?
Um, I think this varies a lot from person to person. If I reflect back on my journey, it was finding the path. Like I didn't even know this path existed, like I knew I wanted to work with teams. I knew I wanted to work with people, but I didn't know that there was this coaching path available, and it just happened at a certain time that I believe was right for me. So for me, there is no right time. If but when you choose to do it, you should be in the right space to engage with it, because it is that kind of a journey, right? You can't just sign up, and as you rightly put it, Karan, it's not a 2-day entry point into something. I think those certificates serve a different purpose, right? They serve the purpose of introducing you to a body of knowledge that you then go and practice. The
Yeah.
ICF credential is different. It is that it's so experiential that you can't just be introduced. So you're introduced through mentors to certain concepts, then you practice it with your cohort, with your peers, and then you build the muscle for it. So your credential is right at the very end of a process, right? It's like it's completely different. So in one their whole idea, it's like in the certification process, you are getting a book or you get some material and you go and read and you experiment in your own time, and they don't know anything else about you after those 2 days. You're done, you're out in the world.
Yeah.
But here in a credential, it is not like that. You're in this little incubator, where you're practicing in earnest, and you only earn your credential when you have demonstrated that you have that competency. So the right time is when you can invest that time in doing that properly. If I've seen sometimes, what can happen is if you have a lot going on, it becomes really hard to provide that, create that headspace where you can engage in this, because it's hard work. There will be times when it's frustrating. You need to reflect, and you can't just do it like, oh, I'll schedule 1 hour every day. It doesn't work that way, because it's a long marathon, right? So you need to brace yourself. You need to take that time. So yeah, that's an important factor for me. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for that. I think an interesting perspective. The right time might or might not come, but
Yeah.
I think the importance is that if you could dedicate, you used a very beautiful phrase there, invest time and have that headspace to take up that rigor. Else it might not, it might just fall flat.
Correct.
Now invest time. So I know that, I mean, I already mentioned that there are some courses which are 2-3 days, and that's a very short investment. It is like a sprint, right? But along with the time, and I'm going to ask a very poignant question, a very common question which I often get asked when I am introducing agile professionals to this journey of
Mhm.
ICF ACC or PCC. The common question that runs in their mind is, um, ICF certification is costly
Mm.
relative to other certifications. It is a tad bit costly.
Mm.
Now, obviously, it takes more time and more rigor, and all of the elements which you mentioned. It's a global stamp. All the reasons are there, but still, it might not convince any agile learner to pursue this. So, the question to you, and I invite you to share your learnings, your thoughts on this, is it the right choice for an agile professional to invest in ICF ACC or PCC or any other credential, ICF credential, and just measuring the ROI of it? Does it truly make sense for an agile professional to invest in this kind of a journey?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think we should not compare apples to oranges, right? Like if we compare the regular certificates with an ICF credential, we're not doing justice to either, because they serve different purposes, right? Now, the way to view an ICF credential is more like you're getting a degree in something. Like
Mm,
I thought it's like equivalent to the BE degree that I did, because it is the same. It took me about 8 months, maybe based on the speed at which people go at, it could take a year. But it's about um, sitting down, studying, reading, reflecting, practicing, all of which are um, very important. They are the things that actually help you complete that journey. Now, why is this more expensive? I don't think it is more expensive, because it depends on how you view cost, right? Like if you compare it with a certification, yes, it is more expensive, but a certification gets done in 2 days. However, an ICF credential is not done. So you need that support from mentors, you need that support from your peer group, and all of this, creating this environment for learning to happen, is what your credential is worth. So it's more like, how much are you willing to invest in yourself, right? It's that question. So yeah, so it's a completely different sort of credential to a certification, and I think that's where the question around cost comes, right? If it's like we can't buy a bicycle and a car at the same cost, similar kind of thing, right? It's a completely different thing, serves completely different needs. And that is why it's important to understand what you're getting into and why you need it, so that you can commit to that.
So I just want to maybe extend that question. So when I said ROI, what I meant was, is there any professional utility in
Yes.
gaining ICF ACC?
Yeah. I'll come to that. So this is, there definitely is, because you see, what do we do as Agile coaches and Scrum Masters? We introduce Agile methods, and we sort of facilitate the adoption in organizations, right? Organizations are made up of people. And as I said, everybody's got beliefs. So even though we start with teaching, and even though we are experts in our content matter, human behavior doesn't change that easily, and we should not seek to change it by pushing, uh, right? So that is where the coaching really helps, even very simple things, like if you go into a meeting and even if you're not coaching, if you're facilitating, or you're part of it, the quality of your question lifts the meeting, because people can see something. Not everything is understood. Very much the way you are doing right now, Karan. You're asking me questions about some metaphors. You've asked me to expand on things. Now, if you hadn't done that, probably you would not have heard what I'm really thinking, right?
Very
It's
true.
the same thing. It's the same thing. But you're not coaching me. We are having a conversation. But this has changed the way we are having our conversation, right? It's the same thing. So the impact is manifold. There are small places where you can feel it, where like it's in one-to-one conversations and in the everyday, and you can feel it in a big way, especially when you facilitate and coach teams, because one, your presence improves. You're very aware of yourself, so you're not trying to push your views on the team, even subtly. Sometimes people are not even aware they're doing these things, right? So you're able to stay neutral. In the agile coaching space, neutrality is important, but it's actually a very difficult skill to master. People spend years mastering it. So how do you do it? You can't just turn up and say, I'm going to be neutral. It doesn't work that way, right? So in that, all of this helps, and so your coaching improves. The way you show up in the organization is different. And that's where the ROI is. So I typically like it when people want to work with me again. Like some teams and some organizations, they call you back, right? Like some teams that I work with will call me back and say, like, we found this useful. Can you come and facilitate again? And I find that that will only happen if you've done if you worked in a certain way the last time around. And then other things, right, like trust, creating psychological safety, all of these are big things, right? But when
Yeah.
you get an ICF credential, you're able to bring all this because of the way you are. You're able to facilitate these shifts. So they're no longer buzzwords. They actually become very concrete. These are intangible terms. They're very difficult to measure, but you can create these spaces where people can come and do their best work, and that's what's important.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot for that. I think so. What I'm sensing is there is definitely an ROI, a positive ROI. At times, it shows up in the way you behave, in your demeanor, in your interaction with teams. And as you very rightly said, one good indicator could be, are the teams calling me back for
Yes,
facilitating and
correct.
for working with me, right? So there is a certain element of professional utility. Obviously, there's a lot more. So from till now, we have been wandering in the professional realm, right? Asking, and I'm sure it's beneficial for the viewers as to know when you should do it, why you should do it, what are the elements of ICF ACC coaching. But I want to now zoom in and maybe understand from you, what is the personal impact of ICF credential in your own life? How it has changed you as a person?
Okay, before we move to that, Karan, the other aspect I forgot to mention in the previous thing is that there's a very natural intersection between ICF coaching, agile coaching, and leadership coaching, because, a lot
Wow.
of time you work with leaders. Uh,
Hmm.
you work with product managers, you work with engineering managers, because they are the people who are working with the teams. And then you work with other managers who are managing them, like directors, and all
Correct.
of them. um Having a coaching mindset helps immensely, because you have a certain empathy for where they're coming from, and you don't get irritated or annoyed, and you're able to understand their world. At the same time, you're able to uh, figure out that there's a work with them to figure out a different way of working, and that's very important. I forgot to
Fantastic.
mention. Yeah.
That's absolutely fine. Thanks for again bringing this up. I think understanding their world. When I was talking to Subhash, who's the founder of Regal Unlimited, at one point of time we had a discussion, and then a very poignant question he asked was, "Whose reality is it? Is it the
Mm,
client's reality or is it the coach's reality?" So
yeah.
as a coach, when you're getting trained for those 60 hours, take 60 odd hours of training and doing 100 hours of practice, constantly you are asking ki, I'm not trying to impose my reality on the coachee, and on
Yeah.
the other way, I'm trying to understand their reality. So that gets spilled over professionally as well. That's what I'm sensing, I'm hearing from you.
Correct.
It
Correct.
definitely
And
gets spilled over.
yeah, and when you're talking about reality, right, I think the other trap is that there is no perfect reality. So, like when we going back to this certification things, right, when we learn about skills, there's a perfect world, there's an ideal world. We don't see an ideal world. You will see a very different sort of world. How do you work with that world? That is the question. And that's where coaching helps you, you know? So, yeah,
Fantastic. So maybe I'll backtrace, and because that's a question coming to my mind right now, and I
sure.
want to voice it out. So let us say an aspiring agile professional, he wants to get into this, right? He wants to work with leaders. He wants to coach people instead of teaching and mentoring. He might have done that earlier, and he might want to take his professional career to a notch above, right? Now, we all know that ICF does not provide direct training to become a coach. ICF has certain approved institutions across the globe, and they're accredited by them. And these institutions provide the training. Regal
Hmm.
Unlimited is one of them. So, my question to you would be, assume that we have an aspiring young agile professional who wants to become a coach, excited to become a coach, and then what he or she should keep in mind while selecting a coach training institute, because he's not getting training directly from ICF. He has to go through a training institute. So, what factors, what things should he keep in mind while selecting a coach training institute?
So, one thing that I kept in mind was this, I
Hmm.
see there are many training institutes out there. I think something to an agile coach in particular should keep in mind is that while we are familiar as a group with coaching, which is great, probably also, using a little bit of the coaching aspects of coaching. I don't think we were like, I wasn't completely coaching, but aspects of coaching, like asking questions. There's a lot to learn and there's a lot to unlearn, right? Sometimes it's very hard when you think, like, you've been doing it for all these years, and then suddenly you realize that, oh my God, there's a lot more to learn, and there's not what it's a hard feeling, right? Realizing that what I was doing was not really coaching. Now I have to learn to coach. So, for that, it's important that you have that safe, nurturing environment and access to mentors. I think what I would look for is to see how these programs are paced. I really like that the Regal one went on for a few months. So every our sessions were every Saturday, and we used to have practice every Saturday. So we got it wasn't theoretical at all, and it's only in the practice that you actually find yourself, right? Because you learn everything and it all looks easy. then in the moment when you have to do it, you're like, oh my God, what do I do? Right? Like, what's the question to ask? Like, and then it becomes part of who you are. And then listening to the mentors give feedback. And we've all been parts where, where we've observed sessions. That's also a very good experience because you tend to do the same mistakes everybody makes. So having that access to mentors, having regular practice sessions with your cohort, and having a well paced and well spaced out program is very important. It shouldn't be rushed. If you're planning to get a ICF credential in 1 week, not possible. I don't know how people do it, but I know that there are people who do these short courses, but that's not going to work. Not for me at least. And so I would think that is really important. The other part is, I really enjoyed things like the book reviews, the emphasis on journaling, which are all good habits to pick up, like good things to think about, good things to build into your practice. And all of that was introduced to us, as part of the journey. So it needs to be holistic. It needs to be holistic. There's a lot of care for us personally as people. I think our mentors do know each and every one of us, our strengths, and what we need to work on. And that personalization is extremely important because without the nurturing, you're out on your own. And I maybe a small minority might make it, but for the majority of people, you need that structure to help you move forward. So especially if you're an agile coach who thinks you've been coaching. So yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Thanks for that. I think what I'm picking up is few, if I have to paraphrase, that would be actually, access to mentors, the pace of the journey, the personalization, the nurturing, that, the support structure which you build. So any agile professional who might be looking to enter into this and looking to explore Coach Training Institute should keep these things in mind. What's the support structure? What's the mentor exposure hours, right? The pace of the journey. Great. So you also mentioned few habits, good habits which are easy to pick up and good to keep. That's where I think I'll make the segue to the question I asked previously. How has this journey impacted you personally?
So how it has impacted me personally, as I said, right? Current coaching is deeply experiential. So like even when I started, I didn't exactly know what I could bring to coaching because we get coached as coaches. We get coached regularly. Like we go to our peers and we get coached. So
And that's a sorry to, if I may pause you. That's a significant and a very poignant statement. As coaches, we do get coached.
a
So I
lot.
mean, we come thinking that I will start coaching and change somebody else's life, but the vice versa happens. For many of the cases which I
Yeah.
have observed.
Yeah, and it's very important, because and many people will tell you this, but what I have observed is there's like a mirror relationship, between coach and coachee. So as a coachee, when I became a better coachee, I also became a better coach because
Wow.
the ability to open up, to be vulnerable, uh, you can only go as deep as a coach as you're comfortable as going as a coachee. This is my observation. So if I was not comfortable talking about certain things, I probably would not ask questions when I'm in the coach's seat either, because those are exactly the same scenarios, just the roles reversed. So there's a very beautiful relationship there. The way you show up as a coachee will influence how you show up as a coach as well. So when I started bringing things that I really wanted to think through. First, it was typically people do this, right? It was hobbies and all that. Then we started going deeper with our peer coaches. And I started getting really beautiful insights into myself and breakthroughs and also clarity in thought. Like I would bring something up and I might have some conflicting choices, and then just sitting and talking to somebody and having that reflected back to me and moving through that would open up something I've never seen before. So as a person, I started seeing a lot of benefits in that. The second thing was because I started understanding myself as a person, even if I was talking about a certain topic, I would see ripple effects in other areas. So I was a lot more I think I'm a lot more patient with my kids, and I listen better now. And I also notice I tend to ask more questions. My curiosity has increased, like my tendency now is to more ask questions rather than assume that I know something. And so it has had a very big impact on me as a person.
Very interesting. Thanks again for sharing so candidly. So I think maybe if at all I want to conclude, and maybe as we reach the conclusion of this conversation, I just have probably one more question for you. So you have done ICF ACC. Congrats. I think few weeks back you got your credential. And now you are on the journey to ICF PCC. PCC stands for Professional Certified Coaching, for those who might not know. This is the second level of certification and credential which ICF provides. The question to you is, these are two different journeys.
Yeah.
Has anything shifted from ACC to PCC?
So I was one of those who couldn't stop with ACC. Okay, I was like, oh my God, I'm still traveling now. I have to stop. But I think the shift is that we think about the coaching competencies in a slightly deeper way, and um, one thing I've noticed is the deepening of how I approach some of these conversations. Previously, I didn't notice certain things, especially about the person in front of me when I was coaching. Now I'm able to notice a lot more about what's not being said. And I think that's the shift. Um, I think these are two different journeys, because one is longer than the other, one is less structured than the other. PCC is a 500 hour, the prerequisites like 500 hours, and you're like, it's one of those things where you start traveling a little bit more alone, because when it's a long journey, sometimes people want to take different paths, and I'm seeing that with my peer group as well. We are interested in different things. Some people are going deeper in certain areas. What I like about the PCC journey is that it's very loosely held. For me, that's exciting because I can make it mine. But there's still all of that rigor and that focus on being a better coach. And that's what's important, for me. And yeah, so yeah, I think you have to really want to be a good coach to embark on the PCC journey. So yeah.
So maybe as we are ending almost 40 minutes into the conversation, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, Karan. What I realized was, uh, I uncovered a lot more than I thought I knew speaking to you. So it was a really nice conversation to have. It was nice to reflect back and think about things and connect the dots. So yeah, it was a good conversation. I'm feeling great.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Pleasure is all mine. And obviously, I'm sure all the listeners and the viewers will benefit from the immense and profound insights from the right time to become a coach. In the sea of certifications, how do you differentiate the two apples and oranges, not comparing those two? And obviously, it's a different journey, more professional with professional utility as well as personal impact. These are some nuggets I'm sure those who are looking to become coaches, be it agile leaders, scrum masters, or even other corporate leaders, will definitely look for. As we conclude, any final thoughts, any final remarks to those who are at the cusp of making decision to become a coach?
I would say it's a very rewarding journey. So if you're at the cusp of it, why not explore it and see where it'll lead you? Because yes, I mean, we've had this conversation, but what I've touched on is a very small amount, because as I said, right, it's so deeply experiential that you have to experience it for yourself. And what each person experiences is different. But for sure, it's a very rewarding journey, and there's a lot to uncover. So yeah, I would say good luck, and be prepared to be surprised, because there's a lot out there, and have fun in the journey. So that's what I would say.
Thanks a lot, Meena, for being with us and sharing these insights. Uh, and I'm sure if those who are listening to it or seeing it on YouTube will definitely benefit immensely from this. In case they have any such queries, you guys can reach out to me, Karan Kumar. I will drop my LinkedIn ID in the comment. And in case you have any specific questions for Meena, I will be very happy to redirect those questions to you. Meena, please spare some time to answer those questions.
Definitely.
Looking forward to seeing you and having many more such conversations with you in the future editions. To those who are looking to make a choice whether to choose ICF or not, I'm sure this conversation would have given you a bird's eye view and even the nuances of the journey. So please feel free to pick those and incorporate it the way you like it. Thank you. Thanks, Meena, and nice talking to you.
Thanks, Karan.
Have a regal life ahead and many more regal learnings to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much and take care. Bye. See ya.